Hey everybody, Chandra here. And yes, I'm sitting in my car waiting for my beautiful daughter to finish her school. And I just wanted to share these thoughts that I've had. Just some stuff that God has had on my heart. And I've been meaning to make this for a minute, so now it's time. Um, I just wanted to talk a bit about this beautiful thing called transition and shifting that happens as we grow with God. You know, these last few years have been a crazy transition for me. I went from having a normal, regular job to taking that leap of faith, being self employed, being in full time ministry, letting God be this cocoon around me, and allowing me this season of being working from home with my children and being able to be present for them in a way that I was not able to be present to them for many years. So it's just been like this crazy, um, it's been a crazy season. That's just to put it to the least. And, last week I was kind of getting this sense in my spirit that things are shifting, that God is getting ready to, well, and a lot of things shift me out of this wilderness season, and we all go through these wilderness seasons. Um, you look at in the book of Exodus, and you have the Israelites who were slaves in Egypt. And when God finally delivered them and Moses had them out and brought them into the desert, and they went through this season up until the promised land. And what was an 11-day journey turned into 40 years. And it was in that time they ultimately, like, they weren't faithful. They weren't faithful in the things that God had done. They went back talking, had horrible attitudes, wanting to go back to Egypt and talking about how great it was. And despite the fact that, yes, they were in slavery, being treated cruelly and absolutely oppressed, in this wilderness season, that looked a lot better than their present situation. And, they're in some of their responses, they talk about, well, at least we had food, at least we went to bed knowing we were safe at night, at least we were this. They didn't have to depend on this supernatural God that they couldn't see. They could just continue going through the motions, and it just came, like the security of a paycheck, a security of knowing where, you had your home, you had, even though your situation sucked. And they weren't living their destiny. They weren't living their purpose. They were slaves. And we all go through these kinds of situations in different parallels. Whatever the situation is, if it's, whatever it is, we all know, we all have that something in our spirits, that call, that dream, that purpose, that destiny, that something that God has called us to. But it's a scary step of faith. And when you take that step of faith, you go through this wilderness. There are so many times that in my life, I can't even begin to count, that I was like, no, God, I know you told me this. God would tell me this or that. And things were just not easy. It just seemed like things got harder. And it seemed like doors that I thought would be opening would just in turn slam shut. Things that I thought were finally the breakthrough, and then that didn't work. That ended up a disaster. Losing a lot of money, in business things that I know that God had told me to do, but then I end up losing money. And it was just like, this did not make sense. And a lot of times I ended up in this time of feeling like I was failing, that I wasn't doing something, even in ministry where things were not being opened that I thought were going to be opened. And it's like, I thought I was doing something wrong. And really what God had told me and revealed to me over this weekend was he was developing things in my character. Not a testing necessarily, because he doesn't really test us in that regard. It's any test is really just so that we can see where we're at. It's almost like a self-evaluation, and it's a strengthening. It's that building those faith muscles. And, are you going to still continue being faithful to the dream? Are you still going to be continuing to be faithful to what God is asking you to do? And I believe that we are entering this season where even people that have looked at you crazy, because I have them, okay? I tell you, I have so many people in my life that have looked at me like, what are you doing? I have been criticized left and right. I have had, people who, think they know better and, throw their opinions on me. I've had, a lot of people scratching their heads, going, what are you doing? She's crazy. God didn't tell her that. That's not what God said. God wouldn't say that. But no, God did. And and so many times my attitude would be like, God, where are you? You told me to do this. Why did it end up like this? I don't understand. And in this time, it created this different kind of trust. It created this different kind of what I call touchstones, these different events that built my faith, things that I could continue to go back on and remember. Well, when God did that then, when he provided for me supernaturally then, he'll do it again now. It's not step by step. And it also kept me and taught me that I needed to be hearing him and seeking him for the new word, the new now word, because what had worked for me 6 months ago doesn't work for me now. The provision, the money that was coming in for me a year ago isn't coming from that place anymore. It's a whole different place. And I couldn't tell you how it got there or where it showed up. It just showed up when it needed to show up. And so he starts stirring these things. And so I know myself, I'm encouraged as he's been using that word transition. He's training. There's a place that he wants to take his people, those that are called, and you know who you are. You have this higher destiny. You know you're not living where you're supposed to be at. You know you're not at the level that there's something more for your life than what you've been experiencing. And, he does this so because when we're in that next phase, it's like our faith, our stuff has to be unshakable. And the only way it becomes unshakable is if it's been shaken. That's the only way that we can know for sure that it's unshakable, if it's been completely shaken. And so I want to encourage those who are in this transition, in this wilderness season, that no, it isn't going to last forever, but it does depend. There's responsibility that we have. And that is that surrender, that dependency, that stop trying to figure it out and be in control of everything, because that's not what he has. It's going to mess it up. Trust me, I've tried. Every time I try and take control, it never works. Ever. And I end up more in a worse situation than I was in the first place. So, and when the things around us seem to be screaming at us, we have to learn to stand and to listen. And to just listen to his still small voice and be like, but God, I know what you said. God, I know what you said. And there have been multiple times, even like in this season, where I'm like, God, if you don't do what you said you're going to do, then you're a liar. Then I'm going to tell everybody you're a liar, because I have surrendered everything. I've given you everything. I have been faithful in everything that I possibly can be. And when I've missed it, I know I've repented, and I know I've been genuine about that, and I've asked you to turn it around. So I want to encourage you that this season is not going to continue forever. And I want to encourage you to start asking God what it is that you need to be learning. What is it he's trying to show you? What are those things in your character that he's trying to mold and to weed out, and so that you can actually be in that fullness? Because it's that character that carries the anointing. It's in the character that makes you the steward, or prepares you to be the steward of the things that God has for you. And so I just want to encourage you and hang in there and know that I am praying for not only myself, but for others, that this season is not going to last, but that I challenge you to look for what it is that he's trying to do and mold within you. And I promise you, I know that he's not going to disappoint, because we're almost there. You're almost there. All right. So you have any questions or any responses, anything, I'd love to hear back from you. Any ways that I can even pray for you, please leave them in the comments, or you can message me on Facebook. And I would just love to be able to reach out and just connect some more. All right. God bless you. Bye-bye.